Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, oh my goodness. US defaultism, when people from the United States assume that everything in the world revolves around them. Americans essentially living in their own bubble. So we're well deep into this thing and it pains me to review these. In fact, I think it is safe to say my last brain cell is fighting for its life right now. If you guys have any stories, any wild things that us Americans have said to you guys, let me know in the comments down below. And if you guys haven't already, like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. We do have some comments from you guys from the last video that I'm going to go over because you guys were definitely very insightful, filling me with a lot of you guys' experiences. Like this one. I am Dutch. We are known to speak and write better English than a significant part of the American population. Recently, I got berated by someone about my pidgin English. What even is that? Pidgin English? We just making stuff up now? Pidgin English? What's going on? I've never heard that until right now. Pidgin English? Oh man. Hey, you at least gotta give Americans points for being creative. I made a typo. And how I probably was unable to understand actual American, to which I could pull out the classic, you write English because it's the only language you know. I write in English because it's the only language you know. I almost got lost there for a second. Yikes! Knife to the chest. That actually hurt a little bit, which is why I've been very proactive with trying to master different languages. I actually used to speak Mandarin for a while. It's been over 10 years since I practiced, so obviously it's very bad. There are some things I still know how to do in Chinese, like count. I can introduce myself. I can have very, very, very basic small conversations, but not that great. German though, we cook it. We cooking with German, okay? But another comment from you guys let me in on some more insight. It actually had me looking at myself crazy because I'm like, oof, I hope I haven't done anything like this before. So one of y'all probably has a story about me somewhere in them comments, you know what I'm saying? I have just been on a tour in Japan, organized by a British company. We were a party of 13, 10 Brits and 3 Americans. When we asked our American companions why they were traveling with a British group, they said that traveling with Americans was too embarrassing. Shots fired from our own people! Oh my gosh, I understand. I understand. Trust me, I understand. I understand. We can be a bit much when we travel, okay? I used to be like that. I used to be very overtly not aware of my surroundings, and it showed. I have stories in previous videos that you guys have probably seen up to this point that have you looking at me crooked a little bit, and I definitely have learned from those mistakes. I have become more situationally aware of my surroundings, and the travel experiences I've had as of late, within the last 4 or 5 years, have been nothing but pleasant. Have I still received some culture shocks and stuff that made me go like, yes, of course, absolutely. But I do it with respect. Just like other cultures travel to America all the time and they're like, wow, there's some things that I like and there's a lot of things I don't like, or there's a lot of things that I'm like, oh, okay, that's different. That's just real different. So I can understand having a more peaceful experience traveling with people who are not American because it's a lot less rowdy. I do see where these individuals are coming from. We have one more comment from our last video in the comment section from one of you guys, and it says, back in school, we had a student exchange program with a small town in Texas. When our classmate returned to Germany, she told us that on arrival in the United States, she had to take like a Greyhound bus from the airport to her destination. When her host family picked her up, they asked her how long the bus ride had taken from Europe. So she, a 16-year-old student, had to explain to her fully grown, working, car driving, tax paying, riding a roller coaster without supervision hosts that the Atlantic Ocean exists. That must have been concerning. You encountered firsthand the quality of education we have in America. How was that? How was that? Firsthand, how was it? Let me know in the comments down below. That is insane. Oh, I know I've said some craziness. I know I've said some craziness. And it sounded like my brain cells had not seen the inside of my cranium ever. All right, I've said some things like that before. I'm not gonna lie. I've called Europe a country. I did not know that there were 7 continents to begin with. Not as an adult, but like, you know, as a teen, right? There was a moment where I'm like, there's 7 continents? Huh? Continence or containment? There was a situation, I do stream on Twitch, just letting you guys know, so my Twitch chat does know about this story, but I feel like I'm obligated to let you guys know as well. I had a hard time pronouncing the word earth. And I also had a hard time, I had a speech impediment when I was younger, had a hard time pronouncing the word and. I used to pronounce it Anida. That's way too many damn syllables. I already said the word and added 2 additional things to it. Crazy. But let's get into the realio dealio. We have a lot of posts we gotta cover today that will make you scratch your head. Warning before we get started, you might feel yourself wither away at the level of lack of intelligence in these posts that you're about to see. So if you can't handle it, I would just say beware. Beware before you watch this video. It gets pretty diabolical. And we're gonna go ahead and start off with our first post, which says, Fahrenheit is the only measurement. Now that's just the caption. Let's get into the actual post. It's a thread, and the top of the thread says, how's 38 degrees hot? Asking genuinely, cause here it's freezing in America. The response then says, stop defaulting to America. The post is from Bangladesh. You guys are so arrogant and dumb. And the reply to that was, funny because we gave you permission to use this app, so be more respectful, question mark. Why is that such a thing on Reddit, bro? Oh my God.
America, we gave you permission to use this app, so treat us like royalty.
Huh? Now, the comments had a lot to say, as you can imagine, and our first one says, how can they think the rest of the world needs permission to use an app? Actual insanity. I agree. Why do we think that the rest of the world needs permission to use our application? Doesn't make any sense. Unless you're allergic to money. If you're allergic to money, then absolutely, of course, yeah. If the entire world, every region, right? Let's say every continent, every country. Let's go as far as saying every country, and then in the United States, every state. Let's just say every country was restricted to using the resources that that country alone produced. You are not allowed to use any internet-related items that are affiliated with any other country. You're not allowed to use any product affiliated with any other country, only the products that you yourself produce. How different would the world be? Each and every one of the countries that exist on the planet, they all have a special ability, right? And if we can, come together and help each other out, we'll be far better off than isolating ourselves from the rest of the world, which is what it seems like America is trying to do currently. So, there's another comment. Yeah, and Spotify is Swedish, so Americans are not allowed to use that. Oh, that would be crazy. You know what's funny? I got called extra old very recently because up until about 2 years ago, I was using Pandora still. Yeah, that app from like back in 2010, 2009 even. Yeah, I was still using Pandora. I was the one keeping it in business. And then people were like, you should switch to Spotify. Why haven't you switched to Spotify? And I'm like, oh my God, another app, bro. Well, I switched and I do not regret it. Our next comment says, permission? More like, please use our site so we get ad revenue. And how was this guy involved in the decision? That's what I'm saying. Oh God, the rhetoric is killing me. Again, I got that final brain cell on life support and it is struggling right now when I see stuff like the post we just saw. But there's more. So again, brace yourself before we dive nose deep into the rest of these posts. The next post starts off with a very interesting caption. How dare 18 and 19-year-olds drink? The shame. Woo! And of course, in true Goblin fashion, there is always context. So let's go ahead and check that out, shall we? The world kept on spinning, question mark. Underneath that it says, what's up? Making drunk headcanons for characters who are 18, 19 is something. Seems like this is like something that was part of a writing piece of sorts, and it's not far-fetched. It's actually quite common that the drinking age is under 21 in most countries. America is just behind the ball when it comes to stuff like that, unfortunately. And obviously, like, everybody has rules and regulations tailored to their own society for various reasons, a lot of them money related, but I feel like America could benefit-ish from lowering the drinking standards as well, but in a world where guns are very limited. But our first comment that leads into addressing this post is, as a Dane, it's always a treat to meet young Americans on a bender in Copenhagen. They're drinking like 13-year-olds even though they're 19 or 20. They're so adorable. Maybe that's another way you can spot Americans out in the wild. Like, we kind of do react in hella belligerent, you know what I'm saying? Especially like the older adults, I guess. Let's say 20 to 21. Let's say 21-year-old adults, right? Sipping their first drink for the first time. Boom. Let's turn it back down. So like 18, 19, 20, right? All out in Europe, they're able to drink, which is a huge shock. They're not gonna get in trouble. So of course they go crazy. They're probably easy to spot because of that. They're like, you don't get turned back in the States. They're like, we can't, it's illegal. This next comment actually says, my head still can't understand 21 as the age of drinking. I had my first beer at 16 and it was considered late in my area. Again, very concerning that the drinking age is so high in the United States, but makes more sense when you see the other surrounding laws, rules, and regulations and allowances surrounding that. So I could see how that would be a point of debate, but we have more. We have more. There's another comment that says, while legal drinking age is 18 here, a lot of people have been drunk before that too. I waited until I was old enough and was considered a bit of a stick in the mud for that. And imagining a character being drunk is just fantasy. I hate this new pearl-clutching attitude towards fan fiction, etc. Writing about a fictional character doing something risky or illegal is not the same as encouraging it IRL. Yeah, I mean, pearl-clutching in general, that's something that transcends every culture, right? There's still the trope of boomers out there that always say, video games cause violent tendencies, which I heavily disagree with. I'm pretty sure there's research to back up those claims though, like video games, like first-person shooters, FPSs probably have some kind of negative impact on the human brain, but I think that's a bunch of hogwash. But not as big of a hogwash as this next post, which says, why would this post about the NHS UK healthcare not be written for Americans? Of course it has to be about America. Of course, of course, of course. Well, the post in question here says, a new gonorrhea vaccine is now available on the NHS from the 1st of August 2025. It's the first gonorrhea vaccination program in the world, which is pretty insane. Underneath this post, it actually says, gonorrhea is spelled wrong. This is already worrisome. And there was a reply, and the reply to that comment says, we are UK based and use the Oxford English Dictionary spelling. Looks like you're using the US spelling. Have a nice day. The battle of the Englishes is. The battle of the Englishes. Well, of course, the comment section had a lot to say, and our first comment fired off by saying, and I swear, if a Yank tries to correct me on trying to sound French by saying maneuver again, we spell it differently. You know what I'm saying? We spell maneuver differently. We probably say it very differently as well. Maneuver! Well, next comment is very interesting as well, as it says, like diarrhea too. If you notice, diarrhea in this comment is spelled very differently from how I'm used to seeing it in the United States. But you can also notice that I am not freaking out about it. Oh, crazy. We do exist out there. We might be very few and far in between, but we exist. Oh my God. Anyways, our next comment says, are Americans genuinely unaware Britain has alternative spellings, or do they just deliberately like being douche canoes? I think we like being douche canoes. I'm just saying. I mean, if you look at our track record, it kind of speaks for itself. Again, I've been there. I've been there myself, and I kick myself all the time for it. There are times where I still find myself doing things like that. To this day, I default, I say some dumb stuff, I do some really dumb things, and the only thing we can do is learn from our mistakes. We have another post to go over, and I'm pretty sure you guys are wondering what's cooking up in that pot. Well, let me show you what's cooking, okay? Does this person think that America is the whole world? I'll answer that question for you before we even look at the thread. Yes, I'm not interested in KFC. I don't really like fried chicken. Based. The next comment in this thread says, you don't like fried chicken? This is blasphemy against your country's food, man. And underneath that, it says, my country's food? What are you talking about? And the reply to that was, fried chicken is one of the most famous foods in the country. What kind of American doesn't like fried chicken? And of course, the response to that was, I'm Luxembourgish. Oh God. Now, I actually did get to meet somebody from Luxembourg. I know two people from Luxembourg now. One of the streamers' names is Let's Hugo, and the other is the brother of Let's Hugo, which is By Toby. They're both actually very funny, and they're both from Luxembourg. And it's interesting. I didn't even realize Luxembourg was a country at all. I didn't even know it existed. Let's see what the comment had to say. 10 Pounds says that guy does not know where Luxembourg even is. I have a confession. I don't know where specifically on the map Luxembourg is either. I don't know. It's gotta be close to Germany. I'm gonna go ahead and say it is. Well, let's move on to the next comment, which says, today I learned people from Luxembourg are called Luxembourgish. And the response to that comment, no, they're called American, apparently. That thread will live forever in the archives, all right? Forever in the archives. Our next comment, ooh, so what if an American doesn't like KFC? I'm not personally a fan, but equally not American. LOL. I'm not a fan. I'll just straight up tell you I'm not a fan of KFC. If there was a chicken spot, like I said, Popeyes over KFC any day of the week. It's so delicious. I'm getting hungry talking about it. Let's move on to the next post before I eat this camera. Well, the caption says, all banknotes are green. Well, let's look at the context, shall we? Capitalism needs a logo. It's a huge miss that communism has the hammer and sickle, which actually goes hard, and capitalism has nothing. Let's do better branding for capitalism. And then someone comments some weird ass shit underneath this post. Okay, man, my eyes were trying so hard not to think that this symbol was a swastika. It looked like a goddamn swastika, right? That looked like a swastika, bruh. It looked like a rebranded swastika. This looked like some shit Kanye would put out on the front of an album cover, but then say like, oh, it's not even really that bad for real. It's the new Kanye symbol. Oh Lord. Well, there's a part 2 to this post, which says, y'all want the flag with dollar green instead of yellow? Question mark. Underneath that it says, nah, green background instead, like a banknote. And it has 41,000 likes. I would say context is key, right? Maybe this was on an American thread and that's where this popped up, but without the context, this looks like textbook US defaultism. Banknotes for what country? I hate to do it to you, but like, banknotes for what country? Because capitalism, it's not exclusive to the United States. I mean, we are up there for sure. We love our capitalism, but we're not the only country involved in capitalism. There's a lot more countries involved in capitalistic practices than just the United States of America. And of course, we have comments that were pretty spicy. Let's start off with this first comment that says, my guess is that it's yellow for gold. Not that spicy, but yeah. I just can't get past the fact that it looks like the Nazi flag, bruh. The yellow banknote with the white circle and the weird looking, not even trying to hide the fact that it could possibly be a swastika. Let's see what the next comment has to say. This flag, what's important is the user that commented this is from Germany. So you already know where this is going. The comment that responded to this comment says, agreed. Last time we saw it, it was a bit more red. That's what I was saying from the jump. It looked like a goddamn Nazi flag. Well. If it looked like a duck, it quacked like a duck. This next comment actually says, yeah, it's just an accident that dollar sign was tilted just enough to create a fucking swastika. That's what I'm saying. You could have done so many things to not fall under that damn category, but come on, man. Well, let's go ahead and move on to this next post. The caption says, found one in the wild. Now you might be wondering, okay, obviously it's probably referring to an American since that's the whole topic of this video, but how and why? Well, let's go ahead and look at this thread. The top of the thread says, did this dude say anti-clockwise? Underneath that it says, the opposite direction to clockwise, normally called anti-clockwise, I'm pretty sure in the UK. anyways. Underneath that, it says, most people call it counter, at least everywhere else anyway. Oh, here we go. He done messed up. Underneath that, it says, newsflash, other countries outside of the USA exist. And underneath that, it says, I'm in Australia. We speak British English, so it's anti-clockwise. I didn't even know anti-clockwise was a thing prior to reading this post, if I'm being so real with you. I had no idea. So there's that. And there's comments. Let's read those comments. Now, our first comment says, at least everywhere else, they think American English is the standard, and anything counter to that is just people getting stuff wrong. But if nobody tells them, how would they know? I'm sure the average 10-year-old in the UK thinks everyone uses the same words and is puzzled if their American isms are corrected. I know I was. I understand la struggle. I was a part of La Struggle. I contributed to the problem. And again, I think what has helped, aside from being educated, is traveling and getting to experience all of this firsthand, ground zero. It'll do something to you. It'll definitely do something to you. So I'm glad I've had these experiences where I was allowed to explore Zawaldo and learn from it. Now, our second comment that is less hefty, people say different things in different places. Most English speakers around the world seem to be able to understand and ignore or mark it up as an interesting quirk of the English language. Americans have to correct you to their version. You know, feel like Americans in this context, how we've been discussing USAENs, as you guys like to say, we're almost synonymous at this point when it comes to travel. Vegans and CrossFitters. I mean, there's that running joke, a vegan and a CrossFitter enter a room. How do you know who's who? They'll straight up tell you, right? That's the joke, they'll tell you. Same with Americans, we'll just let you know. Hey, I'm American. We'll also correct you if we feel like you're saying things wrong. One of the things that irks my soul, and I didn't know this until I started traveling a lot more, is people who speak English of any kind, right? And, you know, Americans are like, oh, they have a little bit of an accent, and they try to correct them on what they're saying, or they act like they don't understand what they're saying. And I clearly understand what they're saying. I'm like, okay, everybody speaks English a little different. Get over yourself. But it's so weird. The nationalism is insane. Like, a lot of Americans, when they travel, they're like, okay, well, if you don't conform to me, you are an enemy. Let's expand our minds a little bit, be a little bit more open-minded, and we can hopefully reverse this stereotype, because it, you know what I'm saying, definitely exists for a reason. Our next comment says, we're so suffused with American culture here in New Zealand that you will often hear both anti-clockwise, probably the main way of saying it, and counterclockwise. I heard it's the same in Canada as well. Like, Canada, you guys have like completely mixed United States American lingo with, you know, Canadian American lingo and stuff like that. It's different. Like Canadian English, American English, boom, they collide, and all of a sudden you're using imperial and metric units, and you're using Canadian and American lingo, and it's very, very puzzling. Let's get into this next post, because I'm pretty sure you're eager to find out what else we got in the chamber. Closer to where? More affordable to who? Let's go ahead and check out the context. Spain has opened an accessible beach in Barcelona for people with disabilities to swim in the sea. That's pretty cool. Well, the thread starts off saying this: follow us for more of the best stories from around the world. The author of this post, of course, and then the response to that underneath it says, Mexico has already done this. I wish they would highlight that, since it's so much closer and probably more affordable. So much closer to where and affordable to who? Now, of course, the comments went absolutely ballistic, because it wouldn't be in the US defaultism thread if it wasn't. So our first comment says, for some Americans, the whole world is just that one big abstract amusement park. They don't even consider people outside the US living and breathing humans, only as the NPCs that are only designed to cater to them on every move. And I'm so serious when I say this, but this user is absolutely correct, because a lot of times when people from the United States travel overseas, by default, They're like, okay, people will just like get us. They'll just understand us. They'll just conform to us and our isms, you know? And while the world understands how America works, they don't do that. Okay, that's not how it works. Now, obviously for money purposes, there are a lot of places that still kind of, you know, make it easier for Americans to navigate, but a lot of places will treat you differently if you don't get with the program. Our next comment says, the funny thing is that most Americans don't realize how affordable Europe actually is. And let me tell you, this user's already cooking because I was mind blown. Grocery shopping in Europe, I'm paying a micro fraction of what I would be spending in the United States, okay? On produce. Produce, listen, to live longer in the United States costs an arm, a leg, and a goat sacrifice. So the fact that I could see foods in grocery stores in Germany, for instance, and be like, dang, like grapes are only a few dollars here or a few euro here. In the United States, a bag of grapes can run you up to 20 bucks for a bag of grapes, okay? And you wonder why the obesity rate is like spilling out of the roof, okay? My best friend is getting married in Las Vegas in June. I live in Nebraska. The 36 hours I'm spending in Vegas is going to cost me over $1,000. I am also going to Greece for 7 nights in November. Hotel, including breakfast plus airfare, was $1,500. Granted, I'm staying at a small local hotel with rave reviews, but I'm not planning at staying at the hotel for much other than sleeping anyway. Yeah, also when it comes to getting hotels in the United States, and I think for most places, where you get your hotel and who you get your hotel through does matter quite a bit for safety purposes, because I do believe usually you get what you pay for. In the United States, that's not always the case. They do overcharge all the time. And I know a lot of you guys are probably saying, well, yeah, obviously, same in our respective country. But I'll put it this way. Whenever I would stay in hotels in the United States, I would say for a mediocre hotel, like the bare basics, whatever, $200 a night. And I'm like, whoo, it hurts. It hurts. But in Germany, I was in a king suite for less than $200 a night. That shattered my whole reality. Everything was immaculate. King suite I was in had 2 other rooms. I was absolutely mind blown. Now, moving on to our next comment, which says, oh, comments like this just make my blood boil. Oh, you have no idea. When I read comments like that now, I'm like, oh my goodness. There are people like this in the world. Like they actually exist. Let me let y'all in on a little thing. I understand that people like this exist all over the world. America just has a way of being first place at, you know, the dumbassery. Well, we got more posts to cover, and our next post says, on a post about cycling in the UK. It's a thread. Let's read it. Top of the thread says, a refined gentleman. It's a part of the post. Underneath that it says, in the US, it is objectively incorrect. Now under that it says, who gives a fuck about the US? Not relevant here. Underneath that it says, on an American-based website. Oh my God. Bro, I did not realize how much that tired ass fucking rebuttal is used on Reddit. It is so, at this point, infuriating. Come on, man. Come up with something new.
On this American-based website, we give you permission to navigate the space. So obviously, oh my God.
My brain cell, I think it's coding right now. Hold on. With roughly half its users based in America, you think the American viewpoint doesn't matter? Go off, King. Underneath that, it says, on a post about bikes in the UK, no, not in the slightest. And underneath that, the reply from the dumbass that happens to reside in the United States says, read this comment thread again, slowly this time. I can't even believe how out of touch the user is, bro. Like, I can't believe it. Like, did he not? He needs to reread this thread slowly this time. Cause what? Are you serious? Are you serious? Let's look at the comments, because I'm eager to get to those. Read this comment thread again, slowly this time. The audacity. That's what I'm saying, bro. Like, what? What do you mean? You're commenting as if you didn't read your own thread. But we have another comment which says, God, why are these people so rude? That's what I'm saying, bro. Rude and dumb are like that's a diabolical combo. That's a diabolical combo, man. That's like Mario and Luigi. Next comment says, I'm blunt with people myself, but the majority of hostile interactions I've had online are with people from the US. As a result, I come off as incredibly grumpy and mean online since there are a lot of Yanks about, when in reality, I'm quite chill IRL. They just seem to revel in the rugged individuality mindset so much that they always have some level of self-importance to them. Main reason why you often see how entitled they often act, etc. I remember trying to point out to one on how politics isn't as simple as left-right, and that Democrats over there are not leftists in any sense of the word. Ended up wanting to strangle the cunt in the end due to how obnoxious he was about it. Yeah, when it comes to politics in general, I mean, obviously the world understands the United States operates in a bipartisan political system, and it has completely screwed up how Americans look at, politics. We can't fathom the idea of a democracy that isn't overtly leftist and a republic that isn't overtly mega ultra right-wing conservative. It's so frustrating. It is so frustrating. So I would just say avoid the talk of politics altogether with Americans unless you want a hostile encounter, because I'd say 80% of the time you will have less than intelligent conversations with Americans in politics, or at least very heated discussions because of the point of view of the bipartisan system in the United States, and we be defaulting, so it doesn't help. Our next post says, Reddit still has a COVID warning and it links to a US government website. Ooh, oh my God. The post in question here says, stay informed. To get the latest updates on COVID-19 and information on how to stay safe and healthy, visit the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC. Visit cdc.gov. And of course, the comments turned up twice. They're like, okay, what? Shouldn't the World Health Organization site be the one which should be linked? That's what I'm saying. I do think that to some degree, Google sometimes operates on a geographically tracked radius to some degree, right? Like wherever you're at, it'll give you information based on where you're located. For instance, if I switch my VPN to Germany, then I get German favored search results versus where I am locally. So yeah, I guess there's that. But in this case, I don't know. I feel like with something as widespread as the coronavirus, I feel like it should be a global resource that everybody could look into, that has different languages for every country and whatnot. To me, it seems like a no-brainer, but I guess that's just me. This next comment says, on the bright side, at least it doesn't link to the .gov website where they replace all the COVID info with anti-Chinese conspiracy theories. Looking back at it, I used to, for my English class, college level by the way, .gov sites were one of the credible sites we were allowed to use when citing our sources. And back in the day, they were very credible. But now, especially now, the .gov sites are filled with so much propaganda, it's insane. And then a lot of straight up misinformation. But it's becoming harder and harder by the day when you have stuff like this, especially in the United States. Our next comment says, especially funny when you consider that the current US administration who controls that site are massive peddlers of COVID misinformation. Good googly moogly, man. You'll love to see it. It's rough. You can understand what our problem is. I'm pretty sure on a grand scale. Let's see if you can help us out on this next post, which says, literally in the first sentence of their posts, the original poster said that they were from Cambodia. What does this commenter immediately start talking about? American football funding. Oh my God, I can't wait to read this. I had enough of my school. Well, my school is located in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, and it's called NGS Preah Sisowath High School. Today, I'm here to address an issue. And of course, there's a thread, and the top of the thread says, trust me, that football team will pay for everything. Every kid there will end up in a Walmart. The original poster responds to that by saying, there are no football in my school curriculum. We were forced to do dances for physical education. And underneath that, the response is, no, the football team, every American school has one. I would just encourage people to read. Reading is fundamental, and context is king. and they go hand in hand, okay? You can't have context if you don't fucking read, bro. Read, please, before you comment. I think people are so trigger happy with their comments that they don't even bother to look at the goddamn context. Okay, so our first comment says, absolute chef's kiss defaultism. That's what I was gonna say. And you lobbed that one from the parking lot, because the dude even said where he was located. I'm from Cambodia.
Every American school has football. What do you mean you don't have football?
Reading is fundamental. I am going mental. Good God. Our next comment says, I'm from Peru. Peru? PE, Pennsylvania? It's incredible the ability of nationalist gringos to relate random things to assume that you are also a gringo. We are prestiged when it comes to associating everything with America. It's a special ability that we all have. It's annoying too. It's annoying. My brain hurts. There is no football team. What? They said the school doesn't have a football team, and this dumbass said, obviously, you've misunderstood me. I meant the football team. I saw that too. He's like, we don't have a football team. No, I think you misunderstood me. I mean, the football team. The football team. Every American school has one. Even though you just said you're from Cambodia. The user obviously has a bunch of rocks in their skull because they didn't catch on to the fact that the user that originally said, like, yo, I'm from Cambodia, said, yo, I'm from Cambodia. Reading is fundamental. And I'm going mental. Well, anyways, let's hop off of this post and move on to the next one before I lose my fucking mind. The caption of this one actually says, buddy, you speak our language. Said in English. Ooh, I already know where this is going, but we gotta dive into it anyways. It says, we, the European Americans, are diverse enough and our culture is the default. And they dare tell everyone that we don't have culture. Buddy, you speak our language. I believe we speak the language of the people over yonder. I believe history would have it, the English language in America is derivative from England. It's just a little strange that America posthumously claimed the English language, I guess. We founded it. We stole it. Oh God. Well, our first comment basically signal boosts what I said, as it says, mate, you speak our language. And the next comment actually says, as a wise man once said, I don't speak English because I don't know any other language. I speak English because you don't know any other language. Again, variants of what we've seen with this quote, all to say Americans don't know very much and the world knows a lot more. Now, I'm not saying every single American's like that, but it's enough to a point where the stereotype has been established. Okay, I have to say this for clarity's sake because I do have friends and peers that watch my videos that confront me in person and I have to explain this to them, and I'm like, listen, if you fall in the category and the shoe fits, the shoe fits. But if it doesn't, then you are not in that group of people. Now, our next comment says, did no one tell them Europe is a continent and not a country? Oh wait, European American. Oh brother, oh brother. Good googly moogly, and we still have more posts. The post, clearly about job application in Australia. Redditor, links US government website. Why? Let's go ahead and look at this post real quick. If we look at this very closely, it seems like an application of some sort. There's a lot of highlighted sections. The top of it underneath country says Australia. So I'm assuming this person is applying from Australia. The state, it says Victoria. So Victoria, Australia, we're starting off strong. It says add a photo of yourself. It's circled. Underneath that, it's highlighted working rights in Australia. And then of course there's a box that's highlighted and it says I'm an Australian citizen. So these are all things to take into consideration for what our eyes are about to see and regret seeing next. A user, thinking he was being very helpful, commented, have you heard of this thing called background checks that has to comply with federal anti-discrimination laws? If your country doesn't have laws against discrimination, then it's time for another revolution. And then links a government website to a US government website. Oh God, it's like some 3 IQ level shit. But the comments love to see it. As they said, clearly, That's a job in the city of Australia, Tennessee. God damn it. Here we go. Good God. Australia, Tennessee. All right, next comment says, it's that vein popping kid meme with the text, when it's been 2 minutes since you've talked about the US. Literally the fucking vein popping kid meme. Everything somehow has to connect to the United States in some way, shape, or form. And I feel like that is a special ability we have. We have a special ability to affiliate and associate everything with America. It just don't make no damn sense. But our final comment before we close out this video says, shouldn't have posted it on an American website. Again, copium. And that is where we will leave off on this video. If you guys have any compelling, crazy, wild stories of things that Americans have said to you guys that left you scratching your skulls, please populate them in the comments down below, because I do be reading them. And oh my gosh, they are entertaining. They're frustrating to read sometimes, because I'm like, I cannot believe we keep fucking up like this. But then I realize, I get it. I do get it.